Ideally, I think next time if I was going to do this, I would move my amp out of the way and just put you like there. So we could like look at each other. I could
still like, there's space. I could move my chair.
Yeah, there's no point now.
Do you want me to do that?
No,
I'm going to do it. I want to.
Okay.
I'm going to
stop this then.
Welcome. You are entering a strange realm. A realm of what ifs. What if movies, television shows, and video games were better, worse, bizarrer, or downright different? What might they look like? Find out on today's episode of CineCasters.
Welcome back to CineCasters. This is the show where we watch TV shows and movies and then pitch them back to each other to try and like reconstruct some kind of theme or narrative out of the movie that we thought was different, or different, I guess, is the best thing, because there's no such thing as like worse or better art. So different. That's what I'm going with today. My name is Janglez, and today I'm joined by Alessa.
Hello.
And today we're in the same room for the first time in a long time.
Yep.
Probably since September, actually.
Has it really been that long?
Well, I mean, you and I have been in the same room since then, but like we haven't recorded since we did the finale of September from last year.
Okay, that was a long time ago.
Which was September.
Yeah.
So, and yes, I think September will be coming back this year. So
exciting.
I've got some movies I want to talk about for This Is a Thing, and I've got some movies I want to do on CineCasters. So I guess this is me formally saying that's coming back, I guess.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. But today we're not talking about superhero movies. Today we're talking about The Emperor's New Groove. Tell me about The Emperor's New Groove, Alessa.
I liked it.
I haven't seen this movie in a hot second.
Me either.
But
I remembered like all of the main story beats though.
Yeah.
So
I used to watch this movie like all the time when I was younger. Like my brother and I would quote it. Like, you know, Pacha's Two Kids, how they do like the I can't even do it. But like we used to do that between the two of us.
Yeah.
Just because it was hilarious. I mean, the movie is hilarious. It's really, really funny. I liked it. And yet I found it really boring this time.
Really?
Yeah, like really boring. I think it's because I've seen it so many times.
I think I had the opposite reaction because it's probably been 10, 15 years since I've seen it. So there were a lot of things that I wouldn't have normally picked up as an adult that I was picking up now. Whereas I don't know if... Do you know when the last time was that you watched it?
Well, like 2 days ago.
No, before that.
Before that? No, it's been probably a good 5 or 6 years. But I saw it so many times when I was younger.
Yeah.
That like I can quote this movie almost verbatim.
Wow.
Like I was and I was so bored watching it because I know every, like it wasn't a case of where it was like, yes, this again. It was sort of like, I don't know, maybe the reason I hadn't seen it in 5 or 6 years is because I got bored of it.
Maybe.
And now it's just a case of like, I think this movie for me is more fun to quote than it is to watch. You know, there's some movies that are like that. I know some people who don't like The Princess Bride. They just like quoting The Princess Bride. For me, I think The Princess Bride is amazing. So no, but yeah, I was like, I don't know. It seemed I was not overly fond of watching it this time. I don't really have a lot to say about it. I mean, there is some good stuff. I like the fourth wall break. I like that the story is about Cusco and it's like him breaking the fourth wall, and I like that they introduce that fourth wall break, and then they actually have the moment, like, because he's not on screen for quite a long time while we're doing like Pacha's thing and Kronk's got him in the bag and he's like talking to the audience, but when the camera pauses and he's like, wait, this story is about me. Not him, me. I'm in the sack, right?
Yeah.
That's funny because it's like, oh, we've established this is something that he can do as the narrator. So it's and it what it does is like I can almost see like someone in the writer's room being like, oh, how do we like bring this back to being about Cusco again? Like, how do we bring this back? And instead of being like, oh, we need to have a reminder he's in the sack for this emotional part with Pacha, it's like, why don't we just have him like directly
literally just say, hey, this is about me.
It's supposed to be about me. And that works really, really good narratively and thematically because he's selfish. So he's like, why are we spending so much time on my movie about this other guy? It's about me. So like, I get why that works, but I kind of wish they had done it one more time at the end.
Yeah, we only got it the one time.
2 times. We get it right at the very beginning when he's like,
we only
look at
got the
that.
marker one time.
Yeah. But he's like, look at that sad guy sitting there. You know what I mean? And he like pauses the movie. But yeah, I kind of feel like they needed to do it one more time at the end of the movie to sort of show even narratively that Cusco has turned. I mean, it might have been a bit over the head. Like people would have been like, oh, now you're just like pandering, like you're doing it too much. But at the same time, it's like if he like paused the movie and was like, hang on a second, why are we only showing me like where I'm at? What about what happened to Kronk? What about what happened? Like it's already there. We get shown it. But what if it's Cusco himself actually like forcing the narration to show that he wants to show where other people are?
Yeah.
As a way of thematically showing. Because I think, I mean, I don't know. Is the implication that he's supposed to be the narrator or that he's just a troublesome interrupter?
I think he's supposed to be the narrator in this one.
But then that doesn't quite make sense because he's also interrupting. Like he's also being like, this is my movie. That's where I'm torn because thematically it would make sense. But at the same time, if we say like, well, because he's not interrupting the ending process, like as we're doing the denouement, because he's not interrupting, maybe he's realized like, it's not just about me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
It
could be both.
Could be both. And I think both would work. I just thought like, I mean, I know that it's probably been done to death nowadays. Like the fourth wall break and doing the Netta thing. I think a lot of people think that like Deadpool 1 and 2 sort of ruined that. They sort of beat that into the ground. Mm-hmm. So I actually have a book on the shelf right next to you about addressing the camera and breaking the fourth wall in film. So yeah, I don't know. I'm torn on that one. It is fun when he does narrate. But yeah, I don't know. That's sort of like, I liked it, but
I really liked it. And I also thought that in the same way, because it wasn't just him, it was also Isma and Kronk at some points. They weren't like
break the narrative.
They weren't actually breaking the narrative or freezing the frame in the same way that Cusco did. But at one point they address a giant plot hole literally in the story, which to me is a fourth wall break. Yeah. You know how, they had the map.
Yeah, they're on the map.
And then they like fall, and it's like, oh, I don't know how we got here in time, but we did.
Oh yeah, but we did. Yeah, yeah. That is quite like, I don't know. We needed to be here for plot reasons.
Yeah, and
right?
it was really funny. In my notes, I just said I adore how they address plot holes, and they just were like, yep, this is just happening now. Sorry.
It's interesting to me that this movie this movie to me feels like a vehicle to tell funny jokes. Like it's almost not even really about the story. Certainly you're emotionally invested, but the whole story is about Cusco's turn, right? That turn needs to happen. But really I'm not invested in Cusco as a character. I'm more invested in Pacha.
Yeah.
Which is related to Cusco, but I almost care more about Pacha as a character than I do about Cusco and his like turn, like from being selfish to non-selfish, even though he's the main character. Because like ultimately, I think Cusco is actually the villain of this film, not Isma. And I actually think that's a more interesting take. Isma is the villain, don't get me wrong.
She literally tries
to kill him. Yeah. Yes, I get it. But at the same time, from a certain point of view, if you want to get Obi-Wan Kenobi about it, from a certain point of view, like, I mean, we talk about this all the time. When you have a coup or anything like that, it's only an insurrection if it fails. It's a coup d'etat if it succeeds, right? So if Isma successfully kills the emperor and usurps the throne, then is she the bad guy? Especially if Cusco is a selfish jackass who just wants to build swimming pools everywhere.
Right.
Then I actually think it's more interesting, and the movie's not meant to be read this way, I don't think. But there's no wrong reading. If Cusco is the bad guy, then I feel like the movie becomes more interesting because we're watching the bad guy tell a story about how he thinks he's not the bad guy. That's interesting.
That is really interesting, actually.
Whereas I think what we get here is sort of this, we get Isma, who's this like scheming, conniving stereotype, hilarious though she is, Eartha Kitt, and Kronk by Patrick Warburton, who is single-handedly a scene stealer in every scene that he's in.
Absolutely.
This might be Patrick Warburton's like most iconic character outside of Joe Swanson from Family Guy.
Yeah.
And I would argue that this is probably maybe not more well known, but more widely celebrated.
Yeah.
He does such a funny job in here. His voice adds so much to the character, but he's also kind of a stereotype, a wee bit. Cusco's a stereotype. Pacha's a stereotype. Like
they're all. It's
very simplistic storytelling, and I think that this movie would actually benefit from some not so standardized, stereotypical storytelling. I think because a lot of what I get from this movie is like this is just a vehicle to tell jokes, like when they do the whole map thing.
Yeah.
And there's like the lines coming out from underneath them.
Yeah.
That's a funny way to play with the medium. And normally I'm a big fan of playing with the medium, which is why it's so strange that I don't dislike this film, but why I'm so strangely averse to it.
Because it's too much?
No, because I feel like it doesn't do enough with the characters or the plot. It's very obvious what the idea is from the beginning.
Well, the movie is also only like an hour and 20 minutes.
It's quite short, yeah. But you can do a lot in 90 minutes, 80 minutes.
Yeah. I think it was probably closer to like 75. When you think about it, you take the
credits off, yeah.
It's
a 75-minute movie.
And I don't know why that really matters, but you don't get a whole lot of time with the characters, but they're very easily, like, you still learn a lot about them in the first few minutes that you see them. Like, you can tell, I mean, that's why they use the physical stereotypes.
Yeah.
You can tell a lot about them from just a few of their, like, actions. Like, Isma's always, like, rubbing her hands together. Like, she's the classic villain.
But she's even designed in, like, villainous clothing. Like,
the
just
colors.
colors.
Talk about her awful anatomy.
What do you mean?
She's like, I don't really talk about boobs, but her boobs were like down, like below her rib cage.
Yeah, because they're trying to like emphasize how old she is, and one of the stereotypes of older women is that their breasts begin to sag.
Yeah, but it was so.
Like,
it took me a really long time to understand what they were, because they were literally just little like triangles, and I was like, "What's wrong with her rib cage?" Oh, those are boobs. Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think like as far as stereotypes go, I often think that villains are more interesting than good guys, which is why I think Cusco as like this selfish villain is an interesting character. If we frame the movie as like this is about his turn, but he's the bad guy. He's the bad guy, and
but he ends up being the good guy at the end.
I don't even know if he ends up being the good guy. He ends up being a good guy.
Well, yeah, Pacha's been the good guy.
Pacha's like, to me, Pacha is more of the main character than Cusco is, but the movie wants Cusco to be the main character. I just think it needs to either decide, like, is Pacha our main character and Cusco's the bad guy, or is Cusco a bad guy and the main character? I think that's a more interesting story, and what I tried to do with my pitch. Also,
Kronk has a more visual moral dilemma, like inner moral dilemma.
You mean in terms of like the way
you actually hear him like arguing with little versions of himself
as to whether or not he should kill the
and I
Cusco,
kind of wish that instead of Kronk that we had that for Cusco, or at least that everyone had these. Well, I mean, but at the same time it's part of Kronk's charm, so I don't know.
Kronk's an interesting character in that, like, he is supposed to be this sort of like lovable, muscular dunce in as a stereotype, but I also think that Kronk is actually more nuanced than that, because he is this lovable dunce that does what Isma tells him to do, but he clearly has a moral conscience, as you just talked about when in that scene where he has like the sort of the goods and the bads come about, which makes me think like he doesn't want to kill Cusco, but he also needs to do the thing for Isma. I kind of wish at some point there had been a turn for Kronk where he goes like, oh, actually, this is the wrong thing to do. Yeah. But we don't really get there. Yeah. Like,
we only get him getting angry because she said that his spinach puffs weren't that good.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, adds to his charm. It's like that's what he really cares about, is the spinach puffs aren't that good. But I feel like for Kronk as a character, a more interesting turn would have been is this the right thing to do? Should we in fact continue to kill Cusco? Because like maybe he losing Cusco was a way subconsciously for his guilt to to manifest. Like, he doesn't actually want to kill the emperor or anyone, really.
Or anyone, because he, even while chasing after, like, Pacha and stuff, like, he was never really going for any...
He's not malicious, and he talks to squirrels. Squeakity, squeak, squeakers, squeak, squeakity.
Yeah, that was so good.
It's such a classic thing, and so, like, clearly he's like a wood chip scout or whatever you want to call it.
So he's got that moral compass. He's like the good Boy Scout who's just grown up
on the wrong side of the tracks. Yeah. Or I honestly just think, like, what might be an even more interesting place is, what if Kronk is just, like, excels athletically and is offered a job? Clearly everyone outside of the city is poor as fuck.
True.
What if Kronk has been offered this position with Isma, the pay is good, and now he's got to do her dirty work, otherwise he goes back to poverty?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Even the people inside the city looked
pretty poor. Right?
Yeah.
It's what kind of country is Cusco running there, right?
Well, considering he's like a child emperor.
Yeah, exactly.
Not a good one.
And this is why I think Cusco's the bad guy, but he doesn't know it, which makes for an interesting, like, dilemma as a main character. I just feel like there's more to each of these characters that could have been explored, that could have been brought to the character, that would have made them more than just what we got.
Yeah.
Except for Pacha. Pacha's, I mean, he's stereotypical, but he's pretty good.
I feel like we know his whole backstory and everything.
Pretty much immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still pretty stereotypical, but
I also just love the, like, Patch's theme.
Like
all
his
of the
music theme?
just always just so calm,
yeah,
gentle. I'm like, yes.
I mean, that's why John Goodman was such a good pick there.
Yeah.
Right. And John Goodman has been in Disney, several Disney movies, because he's also plays Sully in Monsters Inc.
Mm-hmm.
A very similar character, although not quite so stereotypical, but a very similar, this gentle giant kind of role. One of the things that does piss me off about this movie is that they have Wendy Malik playing Pacha's wife. Mm-hmm. Wendy Malik is a fabulous voice artist. She's super famous. She's currently running as Ida the Owl Lady in the Owl House, which, if you haven't seen, is the best.
I've seen it. It's good.
It's really good.
It's good.
So I'm just like, and she sort of plays this, like, loving but overworked mother. Mm-hmm. That's like, can we stop with all the stereotypes?
Yeah.
But at the same time, the breaking the fourth wall, the way this movie plays with its medium tropes, the whole map scene is hilarious. The comedy that we get in the entirety of the restaurant scene. Yep. The restaurant is really, really well done. Yeah.
I like how the chef just quits.
Yeah. And then just starts complaining, like, and then somehow Kronk takes over. I love the idea that Kronk is just like,
he's just ready to
food
do anything.
motivated.
Yeah.
He's a fucking foodie, and he is not ashamed of it.
No, he's not.
Right. I love that. And I feel like the food he makes is probably amazing.
Yeah. Which
is why you shouldn't insult his spinach puffs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get really frustrated by that. Anything else?
Okay, so one thing, I focused on this a little bit, like a tiny bit more. Mm-hmm. Well, at least I wanted to, but I didn't actually, I don't know if it played out, but the implied relationship between Cusco, Isma, and Kronk is that, like, Isma's like a mother figure. And there's that one scene where Cusco's just like, so how old is he? Like, oh my god, I was like, okay, that was like peak.
That's like, really funny. I don't know if I got that as a child, but you watch it now and you're like, oh, yeah. I get it.
Or in the restaurant scene where they're like, oh, we're on our honeymoon. Yeah. And the waitress just goes, bless you for coming out in public. Yeah. I was like, oh my God.
I thought the scene, I didn't see it as like Isma's the mother and Cusco's the child and Kronk's the stepdad. I saw it as more like Cusco being like, we're just going to have dinner. But the implication there is that Isma is sleeping with Kronk.
Yeah.
And he's sort of being like that friend, like, he seems nice. Mm-hmm. And how old is he? Mm-hmm. Like, where did you pull this guy out of, right?
Yeah.
As though they're sleeping together, which is funny. It is funny, the implications there. And this movie is full of stuff like that. It's just, it does a great job at throwing out laughs for both kids and for adults in classic Disney fashion. But clearly this one, I think, was supposed to be a comedy before anything else. It feels like a comedy before anything else because the storytelling is kind of cheap.
Yeah.
Both in the stereotypes, but also the narrative. And not the narrative breaking. I mean, like, literally the story, the narrative is just very straightforward.
Yeah.
Selfish king has to become humbled by peasant and then becomes better. Yeah. I almost wish I think that, I don't know if this is true, but I think the original implication was to do a version of the Emperor's New Clothes.
I think so.
And then, as Disney iterated on that classic tale, they moved away from it the same way they have with like everything they've ever done.
Yeah.
Like how the Snow Queen was supposed to be Frozen, or Frozen was supposed to be the Snow Queen, and they like iterated on it until it became its own thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like this was supposed to be the Emperor's New Clothes, but wound up being very, very different. So I feel like that's why the jokes were always try to be fast, because having a nude emperor run around would have been hilarious. So I feel like it was
basically was, because he was a llama.
Yeah, but they never, like, it's not the same story. He never goes into it. But it is still about the humility, learning this humility, because he's been tricked into having these, I've got new clothes that only I can see because I'm the emperor, but really no one can see them.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, yeah.
It's been so long since I've seen this before watching it for this. But I, for some reason, had it in my brain that this was going to be a musical.
I wanted it to be a musical.
It, like, started, and I actually thought it was going to be one. Then it just didn't.
We really only get that first number.
And a little bit of a last number.
The last number?
Where they're, like, in the pool.
Oh, yeah, and they're sort of, like...
Yeah.
But the music is all, like, incidental. Yeah. It's not sung by the characters. It's sort of sung... We have the theme song guy.
Yeah.
Who literally is like a diegetic part of the movie, which is funny.
But he is also a stereotypical, like...
Yeah.
They're just really playing
like
on the stereotypes
Tom
in this.
Brown or whatever. Yeah. Like you're playing with the stereotypes. And then at the end we sort of get... And then we have like the Michael Bolton like musical version at the end in classic Disney musical style. I actually think this one benefited from being a musical, because I think a song exploring feelings may have added some needed depth to the characters.
Yeah.
But I also know that there are people out there who are going like, don't make this a musical because they hate musicals.
Yeah.
And they love this movie. I love this movie too.
Yeah.
But I still think it should have been a musical. Can you imagine what Alan Menken would have done with these characters? He would have made them amazing. I can tell you what Hans Zimmer and Elton John would have done with these characters.
What?
Because that's the road to El Dorado.
True.
It's like literally supposed to be the same kind of culture, South American kind of, feeling and culture to it. Speaking of which, I actually thought the character design and costumes for these characters were really well done. Like it looks, except for Isma's boobs. Obviously, you seem to have a problem with that.
I do have a problem with that.
They are stereotypically done in terms of color and style, like Isma's big collars and like she's clearly colored blue.
Purple.
Yeah. Colder colors, but blue and purple.
Yep.
Whereas like Cusco's color is red. He's always associated with red. Pacha's color is green. He's almost always associated with green and wearing green, right? Yep. So we get these like easily identified, and Kronk is in yellow. So we get these easily identifiable things. But then we also have like, I like the way gold looks. Gold has this like really shiny metallic texture while still being cartoony. The palace is made of gold and it looks good. I like it.
It does.
But I really don't feel like the culture does anything for this movie.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate, because I think there is a rich tradition. Like it's supposed to be like South African or not South African, South American and Central American, but it's really incidental. It's not putting itself in any particular place. It just draws from those artistic styles and then slaps on Western comedic styles onto it. And I feel like that's not fair.
And it slapped on some like Scottish dancing at one point.
Oh yeah, they're like river dancing during the theme song at the beginning.
Yeah. I was like, what?
So either Scottish Highland dancing or Irish river dancing.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt like one of the things that I think movies are capable of doing, and The Road to El Dorado, which is not Disney, it's DreamWorks, but what it did do was sort of explore like a bit of the culture, however Hollywoodized it might have been, or animated, or streamlined, or like essentialized down to a particular thing, at least, and maybe that's offensive, but at least it did something. I feel like, you know, white male cisgendered dude talking about culture, but I feel like this is almost more offensive because it's like supposed to be something and does nothing with it. Like it's I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess on the other hand, you could say like, well, this isn't even a real culture. It's inspired by, but they created a new culture so they could do whatever they want with it. But it's like, dude, like Central and South American culture is like so rich. Why not explore that and do something with it instead of just using it as an artistic inspiration, which admittedly looks really good.
Yeah. It's
just a little disappointing, I think.
It is, yeah.
And that's why I think where the whole like idea of a llama and alpaca come from, because those are animals that we see in Southern and Central American culture. Like they're really important that way.
Yeah.
I just was kind of disappointed. But I did like the way the palace looks. I love a lot of the incidental gags that they do with the fact that the palace is a face.
And it's got a nose.
Yeah, when the water drains out of it and it's like snot coming out of the... Yeah. That looks really, really good. Yeah, I mean, all in all...
I had no idea how the palace worked, and I think that was kind of the point. That was part of the point. Where it was like, there's no logic to the rooms.
It's like way bigger on the inside. Is the palace the head, or is it like...
Everything
that's just
under
one
the
part
head?
of it?
Like,
yeah, it's very confusing. And it feels like they're on the top floor when they're in the basement. Like, you know, when they're in the lab?
When they're in the lab,
it's supposed to, I felt like that was supposed to be like a secret lab in the basement.
And that's where the nostrils emptied out,
which felt like it was like above the city.
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah, I feel like they were just like, let's just leave this up to cartoon physics and not worry too much about like what it looks like.
Which is fine.
Yeah. I'm not mad about it. You seem kind of mad about it.
I'm not mad about it. I like knowing what's going on, and so
I'm not mad about it. She says while she like fidgets uncomfortably.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it. I just like to know what's going on.
Like there's like some kind of world building. For somebody who likes world building so much, I'm surprised you're not more mad about this movie, because there's clearly like some deep tradition and lore in this world that we don't really get.
Yeah.
Even the logic of the map. Because, like, Pacho's like, without that bridge, it's a 4-day hike to get to the palace. And then they're on their way to the palace, stop at a restaurant, and turn back to go home, and then go back to the palace.
Yeah, it was...
That doesn't make sense to me, but I get why it needed to happen, because they, I guess, wanted Wendy Malik in the story more, I guess. I don't know, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't understand how time or
if it was only a day to get back from the palace. Also, he was like climbing mountains and like actual mountains in the scene where he's walking back from the palace
at the very beginning.
The llama, and it's like he's actually climbing mountains and stuff, and somehow this has only taken him like a day. Like what?
Well, I also think that the islands or the mountains themselves are like hyperbolized for cartoon, which is fine, but I think they're massive. They're massive and they're like weirdly hilly. They remind me of like the way mountains are drawn in like traditional Chinese paintings, because there are mountains that look like that, like almost a spire structure as opposed to the classic kind of like triangular mountain that we think of when we look at a mountain on the horizon. They're like these massive spires, almost cylindrical spires up in the air.
Yeah, I mean I'm not a geography person. Like I'm not good.
What do I look like? Some kind of geographist?
Yeah. So I don't know if there's anything like that in. Oh yeah, there are mountains
region, that look like that. Yeah, I don't know if they look like those spires. I think those are done for a bit of cartoon aesthetic. Yeah. But like, there are like tons of mountains in Central and South America.
Okay, I wasn't sure. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like,
but they were so dramatic.
Yeah, I mean,
and there was always a river.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, if this is supposed to be like in the Amazon, I feel like it's not supposed to be that far south. I feel like it's supposed to be like some kind of amalgamation of like Mayan, Aztec, like culture. That's the feeling, or Inca. That's the feeling I get, but I don't know. I'm not an expert, and I feel like this is quite made up anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of water down there. It's quite similar to Canada in that we like have fresh water, running water everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else. Other than I will say that I did see a lot of this as like Cusco's wealth is also like not really brought to the forefront, but it's certainly a factor.
Yeah.
Like a lot of this seems to be like when Isma's in the chair, she sort of like blame the poor for being poor.
Yeah.
Like, so there is a little bit of that in there, and I feel like the movie could have done more with that. Like, Cusco literally doesn't understand. Like, he's like, well, I get what I want. I can just have it, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, if you wanted what you want, you just get it, right? But he doesn't understand, like, there's a clear gap in, like, he was born wealthy.
Yeah. And
other people were not. Like, he doesn't understand that there is an ability to do things that he has that others do not. Things are just given to him. He doesn't even have to work for them. Things are just given to him.
He literally just like snaps his fingers and people just feed him.
Yeah. He like shows up and there's just like 7 wives in a row.
Yeah.
And he's just like, great, you have a wonderful personality. You know what I mean? Like the stereotype again. But
yeah.
He just can, whereas I think like, instead of just being about selfishness versus selflessness, there is a like socioeconomic thing going on there that I feel like is blatantly obvious but not talked about.
Yeah. Well, okay, so Cuscotopia, which is a really great name for it, was supposed to be like a little mini castle, basically, right?
I'm not really certain what it was. Was it he explains it as like his vacation home with built-in water park? Is that what it's supposed to be?
Water slides.
Yeah. Okay. I just thought it was like a water park.
Yeah.
Like he's just building like I don't know, your nearest water park attraction zone.
Yeah.
Splash place.
So that's what it was supposed to be. It was like the way that he displayed it on his little table. That was really cute.
His model.
Scale
size.
I was kind of expecting that he was still going to do something like that at the end of the movie, because even though he's learned a little bit of selflessness, he's still he's still quite selfish.
Yes.
He's not, willing to, displace people for his own selfishness anymore, but he's still like, he's got money, he's going to use it, right?
Of course he is.
And then all of a sudden it's just a little village house that's his summer home.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I feel like the implication there is like, oh, he's like had a full turnaround, and it's like, certainly you can be selfless or at least unselfish while having money, but there is a huge difference in like the way people live when they have wealth.
Yeah.
Right? You can accomplish much more that you want to accomplish. You can, so like, the way that I saw that going is like Cusco, instead of building Cuscotopia and displacing all the people because he can, instead would just be like, I just bought you new houses on a different hill.
Yeah.
And then built Cuscotopia. And Pacha, that could go two ways. He could be like, oh, you helped out the people. On the other hand, he could be like, but that was the hill that 7 generations of my family grew up on.
Yeah.
So yeah, you helped us move, but it was also like, that was the hill.
Yeah.
Right? What about the sentimental value?
Yeah.
Right? Now, on the other hand, Cusco is also the emperor. So he owns everything.
He does.
And that's the perspective that I tried to get across in my pitch.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we should get into pitches.
Okay, I'm going to go first.
Oh, okay. I was going to say I'm going to go first this time.
I feel like
you're going to go first.
Yeah, I'm going to go first because...
because...
I had originally, I had an idea, and then I didn't actually play out the idea. I started writing, and it just turned into something else. Okay. And
that's what writing should be sometimes.
Sometimes. But that's usually how I do most of my writing, actually. Don't tell my profs I said that. And then, I got to the end and went, wait a minute, I still need more. And then that's what I was doing today.
Oh, okay.
That's
so you were like,
because I was like, okay, I'm missing something. Yeah. And I just need to think on it. And then I managed to get it, but I don't know if it's that good. So
yeah, it's okay. Mine's not great either, but I tried something different with it.
Okay. I also renamed the movie to Game of Llamas.
Game of Llamas.
Because that's just what it felt like to
Okay.
me. Okay, so we can start. I liked the song that we started with
At the beginning?
Like the
Tom
I thought that was
Jones?
really funny.
Yeah.
And so we can see, the whole thing where it's like the Emperor's Groove, and you can have Cusco toss the older servant man out the window. And
I think he was just a peasant.
no, he had the servant outfit on.
Did he?
Yeah, it was blue, and all of the
That was just
servants
white.
feeding him food were wearing blue.
That was just white. Okay, well, maybe, yeah, go on.
Anyways, yeah, we just know that he's not a very considerate dude. We switch over to Pacha, who's on his way through the city and then up the stairs, and we find the old man that was thrown out the window, and Pacha's getting more nervous, so same kind of thing. And he thinks that he's going to meet like a cruel emperor, not like an ignorant, selfish dude.
Skinny ass white dude.
Yeah, he's not like malicious, he's just not nice.
Yeah.
Right.
But he thinks he's going to meet like a cruel
Yeah,
emperor.
he thinks he's like stressed out. And then Isma is trying to run the palace and ends up getting fired. Same thing. And then Pacha and Cusco have their thing again. Pacha gets, thrown out, not literally, but he's like, okay, well, this emperor, I feel like I can still reason with him because he's not cruel. He didn't, try to kill me or anything, but he's just misguided. And he's like, it's one of those, I think I can fix him moments,
I love him, but I hate him, but I think I can fix him.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Except less, well, maybe you could code them as queer.
Yeah. Yeah. So Pacha ends up booking another appointment. He doesn't go home for the next day. So he's going to come back, tomorrow and try again just to be like, okay, this is my official plea. Please do not do this. Right. That's kind of what he's going to do. And Isma and Kronk are plotting to kill Cusco in their little lab. And we can have the whole scene where they go down the little roller coaster because I thought that was really goofy because, why not?
Kronk, pull the lever.
Wrong lever.
Why do we even have that lever?
Yeah, so they have dinner. It's planned to go the same way. Cusco drinks the poison for Cusco. And
Cusco's poison, the poison for Cusco, the poison that's going to kill Cusco. Cusco's poison.
Yeah. And then Kronk takes Cusco out, tosses him, and then he just floats. He just floats away. There's no giant cliff for him to fall off. He just floats away.
Yeah. Can we talk about Kronk's theme song?
Kronk.
That's like such a good sequence.
Yeah, it was so
I love
good.
that sequence. I just wanted to bring it up because it's so funny. Okay, go on.
So then Isma and Kronk spend the night partying, and the next morning, Pacha gets out of, I guess he would probably be in like a hostel or an inn or something for the night. And he finds a wiggling, shivering bag in one of the canals behind the building. And so now that we can have that moment of like recognition, or I guess initial fear and then recognition. And Pacha and Cusco both freak out and then are like, oh, your highness? Like, what? And Pacha immediately is like, we need to get you back to the palace.
Mm-hmm.
That's the word, yeah. So that you can be emperor again. Because I think, yeah, hang on. Sorry, I'm just adjusting. Yeah. And Cusco's like, well, yeah, how else am I going to enjoy Cuscotopia as a llama? And then Pacha's just like, you know what? Maybe you should stay as a llama. Never mind. And then Cusco and Pacha can have like a big argument. And Cusco just ends up running off to the palace alone. So I'm just stating this outright. They don't leave the city in mine.
Oh, okay.
So Cusco tries to run in, and then the guards throw him out. And then he tries to like talk his way in, being like, I may look like a llama, but I'm actually your emperor, right? And he like really tries to pull his weight, and the guards just don't acknowledge him because they're like, a talking llama? This is really weird.
Yeah, we should maybe not party so hard.
Yeah. And then he sneaks in. And that's when we get that he's like overhearing Isma and Kronk talk about how their plan was a success. And then Kronk doesn't actually directly say that Cusco died because he didn't actually check in on that. And then Isma and Kronk are like, okay, well, I guess we gotta head out and make sure that he's actually dead. So away they go. So Cusco waited the whole time, just like we can have like a silly like spy sequence as he's like hiding.
Yeah.
And then he like runs out of the palace, which is silly because Isma and Kronk are now gone and the palace is basically his, but he's still a llama. But yeah, so he runs out and he's just like, Pacha, I need your help, right? He's like, he's not demanding help like he was originally, but he's like asking for help, so a teeny bit of a shift. And then they make a plot together and we can have like, I guess, some bonding time there where they're like making this plot over lunch, and then we can have this silly like, maybe not the same restaurant scene, but it would also be really funny to have it like that, like Isma and Kronk are on their way out of the city and that's happening, and like that, just really funny.
It's a good scene.
I wanted to have it in, but I like don't know how to make it work. But just instead of being like a random restaurant in the middle of nowhere. It's like actually just like a restaurant in the city. But yeah, so we can have that. And then I also thought it'd be really funny to have like almost like a spy montage of them like sneaking into the palace together. And it's also just really funny because Cusco's a llama. And so you get like the his hoofs on the tile, but then also Pacha's not a small dude, and so it would just like the physical, I guess, comedy of them trying to sneak around would be hilarious.
It's there, it's like implied.
So when they go to sneak in, they notice like, oh, security has doubled, and so that's why they have to do that, because before he could just like sneak in really easily, but now there's 2 of them and there's also twice as many guards. I also thought it'd be like, I really liked the map, so I thought it'd be really cool to have a layout of the palace and then that's their little map
that's a like moment. Secret,
and you can see maybe like footprints of guards moving around, and then we can see like
very Marauder's map.
That's what I was thinking, where it's like a lot more cartoony and still like comedic, but it's also just, it's not a chase scene. So they finally reach the lab, and then they're like rushing to find the bottle to turn Cusco back into a human, and they're not finding anything. But then Isma surprises them because, surprise, she's back really quick because plot. And she sees Cusco and she's just like, oh, Cusco, I've been looking everywhere for you. We accidentally turned you into a llama and then you disappeared, and I've been looking for you to turn you back because I've missed you so much. And Cusco almost falls for it. And then Pacha's like, what do you literally heard that she was trying to kill you, dude. Like, come on, snap out of it. And he's just like, but she raised me. Because that was in the
original. I heard it.
Basically,
she says, I practically raised him.
And so we can have that same like, she practically raised me, right? And then the guards bust in, and Cusco and Pacha escape into the city. So this is the part where I was like, okay, I need to think, because now what? Because it's not the same, because they're not fighting for a vial anymore. I don't know why I changed it, but anyways, so Pacha is like, man, just come to our village. Like, there's nothing we can do against them. We'll continue brainstorming on how to turn you back, and then we'll figure out how to get you back into the palace from there. And Cusco's like, well, I want to go to that hill, but I want to be human, and I want to be there for Cuscotopia. And Pacha's just like, you still want to do that even after like everything we just went through together? And so they're bickering again because Cusco is like, yeah, but I'll make a room for you. You guys can have a room in Cuscotopia. Like, he's trying to meet him halfway, but not really. Like in his, rich boy brain, that was meeting him halfway. And they're still arguing, and Patch is like, that's not enough, and blah, blah, blah. And then Isma shows up again, and this time it's just Isma and Kronk. And they're chasing Cusco and Pacha. And then Cusco and Pacha get split up, and Pacha heads back to the palace on his own. He manages to escape Kronk. So then Isma and Cusco are like wreaking havoc on the city, while Kronk is just kind of standing there like, okay, I don't know what to do. Like these two, she's surprisingly agile for her age.
Yeah.
Like, as she's like, running around chasing this llama around. And we can also have him like arguing the little angel and the devil again, because I thought that was really funny. He ends up deciding that he doesn't want to kill anyone, and he's about to actually like run in and stop the fight because he still likes Isma. He likes working for Isma, but he also doesn't want to kill anyone or like hurt anyone. And he's about to run in when he bumps into Pacha, who is carrying all of the vials from the lab because he couldn't figure out which one to grab. So Isma turns into a cat because he just like drops the vials. Isma turns into a cat.
Is that my voice?
Yeah. Cusco turns into a turtle, and in brackets here I have Tiny Mutant Ninja Turtles callback. And then they fight, and then it's like now instead of them fighting each other, they're like racing to drink as many of the vials as possible to figure out like which one's the one for humans. And then I also just thought it would be really, I guess, stereotypical, maybe that's not the right word, but it would be really interesting if every vial that Isma drank was like some type of a predator animal.
Just like for like the aesthetics.
That's the aesthetics, yeah. And then Cusco would be like pulling different like prey animals. Just because again it would be like kind of ironic that she just happens to pull like a panther vial or something.
But it also like just adds to the hilarity of like what you could make. Like, can you imagine Cusco pulling a sloth vial in the middle of a chase scene?
That would be hilarious.
Exactly, right?
Yeah. So then they have one vial left. Somehow Cusco has come back to being a llama, and Isma is now actually a jaguar, and chasing him around. They've got like the one vial left. They assume it's the human vial, but they don't actually know because there's no labels on anything. And then they chase it. Somehow Isma gets it and drinks it and turns into a kitten. So again, lots of cats for her. Yeah. So all of them are like, what? Where's the human vial? And then Kronk is like, oh, that's right. I had it for safekeeping. Because Kronk.
Yeah.
And then Pacha grabs it from Kronk, and Isma tackles Pacha. The vial almost drops off a cliff because plot. And then we can have a moment of teamwork as both Cusco and Pacha try to save the vial before it falls. So in the end, Cusco apologizes to Pacha, says, I'm looking to expand my team for advisors now that I don't have Isma. Would you like to be like my peasant advisor?
My peasant advisor.
Because he doesn't quite understand the connotations of his words.
Yeah.
And then Pacha's like, don't call me that, but I'll still advise you. Here's your vial.
That's actually pretty good. Don't call it that.
Yeah, don't call it that. And then the ending can be the same, and maybe not, because I took out the whole scene with Squeakity Squeak.
Yeah, which is cute, but it's also like implications for like what happens with Isma.
Yeah, so I just said like maybe they're stuck doing community service because Cusco is like, well, the whole city's torn apart. Now what?
Fix it.
Yeah, Isma, fix it, right? It's your fault. Fix it. And then we can see them going to, and then Cusco and Pacha go back to Pacha's village. And Pacha's like, here, we'll build an extra room onto our hut for you. And then it's kind of it's the meeting them halfway again, but a little bit different.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I just made me think. I totally forgot about it. Did you ever watch the TV show, The Emperor's New School?
I think I did when I was younger. I don't remember anything from it.
I never watched it, so I don't know what it's about, but I remember it being a thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I just was thinking about that. So.
I don't remember. I think it was their way of being like, look, kids, it's cool to go to school. Haha.
I mean, I think it was just like, we have an IP that we can work with. Why don't we just make more money off of it?
Really.
Yeah. That was good. I liked yours. I like that you sort of had the implications around Cusco being like, oh, I am having a change of heart, but I don't understand, like, the position my wealth and power puts me in.
Yeah.
So, like, meeting halfway is very different when you own nothing versus when you own everything.
Yeah.
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 So this movie opens up, my pitch opens up with Emperor Cusco as a llama talking about how bad his life is to the camera, but regaling us with how it used to be awesome. We then go back to the beginning where we see how his awesome life actually used to be, living in the palaces as the emperor. Because he's the emperor, people also see him as this like divine being in mortal form. So when Cusco meets all the ladies so he can find a wife, we find out that this is actually his fourth wife, what his fourth wife will be, not his first. And they're all dressed the same way and presented to him, and he's like, they all look the same as his current wives because that's like the fashion standard. And he's like, yeah, I don't want any of these wives. He's like, you look great, yeah, too tall, and they all look the same. And he's like, let me guess, you have a wonderful personality. So as Cusco leaves, we see all the girls like get mad at each other, and they are getting changed back into their normal clothes. And some of the girls are heartbroken and not getting to be the emperor's wives. But one of the girls is named Cleo. And she's like, yeah, I'm fine with this. And the girls are like, but you get treated like royalty. And Cleo's like, yeah, but then I'd have to be like forced to never leave the palace. And I'd have to like listen to Cusco and like never met him before today, but he's kind of a clown. And everyone's like, and then some of the girls are like, yeah, he is. But like, you get to be royalty. Everything is given to you. And Cleo's like, that's not really the way that I want things. And they're like, oh, you're not from the city, so you just don't get it. Right? And she's like, well, I'm fine with that. I'm going to go back to my village where I was unceremoniously forced to leave just because the emperor's people they're doing a wider and wider net for brides for the emperor.
Yeah.
For his fourth wife. Yeah. So we're then introduced to Pacha, and Cusco tells him the hill where his village is located is going to have a temple on it. And Pacha's like, wow, a monument to the emperor on our hill would be a great blessing for our village. And Cusco's like, yeah, that was the plan, but I also want to make it my summer home. And Cusco's like, or Pacha's like, well, that's even better. Like, we can have the emperor visit and be with us. And so where do you want to put the temple, where the village, like in our village? And Cusco's like, no, you don't understand. I want to put it on the whole thing. And Pacha's like, oh, okay, well, we can move a few houses. And he's like, no. I don't want your houses there. It's like, oh, there's plenty of room on the hill. We could make it work. And he's like, no, I don't want peasants near my palace, right? Near my temple. So, and Pacha's like, well, it's our hill. And the emperor's like, no. Emperor, I own the hill. You move. So Pacha's depressed with the news and he heads back home. Isma in my version, Isma is sort of doing the emperor's job, but like, yeah, we'll leave it like that. She's doing the emperor's job, and Cusco comes in and he's like, stop doing my job. I sit on the throne. I tell the people what to do. And Isma's like, oh yeah, sorry. Like, you were just busy with other things, so I figured I would take over for now. And he's like, you know what? You're fired. And so then they have to dinner with Cusco and Kronk and Isma. And he's like, yeah, sorry, I had to fire you. So Isma basically is like, yeah, this isn't working. And they turn Cusco into a llama. And then Kronk goes out and like takes him out, like he's gonna go put him in like out into the world, but accidentally loses him and winds up on Pacha's cart. Same thing happens. But after so Pacha doesn't have the heart to tell his family and the villagers that the emperor is forcing them to move with no help, and basically they'll have to abandon their homes and fields. So he goes to like sit down on his cart and finds Cusco, same way. And Cusco basically is like, I order you to take me back. And Pacha's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Because who's going to believe you? So don't build Cuscotopia here. Or stay as a llama and you don't get Cuscotopia anyway. And Cusco's like, fine, I'll find somebody else to help me. And he starts off into the night where he comes across a young woman coming home and tries to convince her that he is the emperor. And we know this. We know that this woman is Cleo.
Yep.
He doesn't know. He doesn't recognize her. And
was
Cleo's
all
like,
dressed up.
oh, a talking llama. That's weird. But if you really are the emperor, that might be a good thing, because Cusco's like a pretty selfish and terrible person. And Cusco's like, yo, if you do this, I'll make you my wife. And she's like, yeah, no thanks. Been down that road. And he's like, what? And she's like, I was at the palace today. Like, you're an idiot. Or he's an idiot, whether or not she believes or not. So she declines, and he's like holding onto her foot. You know what I mean? And like she is like, please, you have to help me. And she's like dragging her. And we find out that she is in fact Pacha's oldest daughter.
Oh.
Yeah. So Isma and Kronk realize that the emperor is not, like, if they lost him, like, we've lost the emperor, we have to go and find him before something bad happens to him, right? Mm-hmm. And so Pacha's still up when Cleo gets home, and she's like, what do we do with Cusco? I think we should just let him stay as a llama. And Pacha's like, I think we have to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. I think that's just the right thing we do. So Cleo and Pacha agree to take Cusco back to the palace. So this part of the movie is exactly the same, except now Cleo's in the mix, and we see that, like, as Cusco and Cleo get to know each other, they genuinely like each other, and she sees that he's not just like a pretty object, and they're like nice to each other, and he may not be a bad guy. So Isma and Kronk are still searching, and Pacha teaches Cusco more about the world and being nice with Cleo there. We can also see that the bridges and roads in the kingdom are not well maintained at all. This is why it takes them that much longer to get to the city, and why Cusco is like, oh, this is why peasants have such a hard time getting their product to the city. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, and Pacha's like, yeah, you control the infrastructure. You haven't done anything for it. That's why it's going to take us 4 days instead of 1 day to get there. This is normal for peasants all over the kingdom. And Cusco's like, whoa, this is crazy. How do we like get goods and whatnot? So eventually we do the restaurant scene, and Cusco overhears Isma and Kronk and that they're trying to kill him, but he hears it, not Pacha. And they were trying to kill him and turn him into a llama. So they escape the castle and go to the palace and use teamwork and understanding and selflessness on Cusco's part. And Cleo even comes around to thinking, maybe this guy's pretty okay, and they can learn to be friends when he isn't a llama, because that would be weird. And so the whole, like, that whole changing thing climax happens. Mm-hmm. And Isma and Kronk are defeated. So Cusco is back to being a human, and he's like, I don't want to make Cuscotopia. Instead, I'm going to fix the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, yes. So we're working on a bridge to make things easier for Pacha's village to get to the city. Cusco comes by and visits Pacha, and he tells Cleo, he's like, hey, I'm going to marry you. And she's like, yeah, we like spent 4 days together. Like, I don't really know you. I'm not that interested. And he's like, no, I'm the emperor. I'm telling. You're my wife now. Mm-hmm. And just takes her. And Pacha's like, what the fuck, dude? Like, we had this whole thing. And he's like, yeah, I'm not being selfish. Like, I'm learning things your way. Like, I'm not building Cuscotopia. I'm building the infrastructure so that, like, we can have more goods come to the palace, mm-hmm. so that I make more money. I'm trying to make things better for everyone. And Cusco's like, no, you've missed the point. Like, the point is that you are inherently selfish. Like, you have to think about other people. And he's like, why would I do that? I'm the emperor. Mm-hmm. Like, I can be a nice person, but when I want what I want, why wouldn't I just take it? Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't I just do that? So yeah, it turns out he's just done the infrastructure thing that has benefited more people, but it also benefits Cusco. And so Pacha's like, crap, this is really not great. And he goes to find Isma and Kronk and asks them, and they've been exiled. And it turns out that the story that Cusco heard is actually Cusco's version. Isma's old, certainly, but she's not a bad person. She's like, I saw that Cusco was like really selfish, so I tried distracting him with other things like Cuscotopia, because when he's doing those things, I could be, and as an advisor, I could sit and help actual people with their actual problems while the emperor fucks off. But he got mad and fired me, so we were like, we'll teach him a lesson. We'll turn him into a llama and force him to live as a llama. But Kronk lost him accidentally. And then he wound up in your thing, and you brought him back, and we hoped he would learn a lesson, but he hasn't. He hasn't learned a lesson at all. So maybe we should do something about this. And Pacha's like, I hate to agree with you, but like, we're not going to kill him. And I think it would be hilarious if Isma and Kronk were like, we have to do something about him. And then they're like, yeah, we'll have to get rid of him. And Isma can be like, whoa. Like, we're not gonna kill him. We're not gonna kill him.
Yeah.
And they don't want to kill him. So they come up with the idea. They're like, well, he has to learn his lesson, so why don't we just turn him back into a llama again? So they give Pacha finds Cleo in the palace, who's getting ready with the for her wedding, gives her the potion, and she gives it to Cusco before they get married. And then she's like, well, I can't marry a llama. And the whole kingdom knows he's a llama, and they know it's him. And they're all like, the emperor can't be a llama. I guess we don't have an emperor. And Cusco's like, but I'm Cusco. I'm the emperor. And they're all like, couldn't be. Llamas don't talk like that. Like, they all know, but they're tired of putting up with his bullshit. And so they're like, well, I guess we need a new emperor. And Isma's like, actually, I think Kronk should be the emperor, because he really like cares genuinely about people, and he keeps things really simple. But also, I'm still going to be advisor, because like it's Kronk. So like, and that's where they sort of leave things. And Pacha takes Cleo back to their village, where there's no Cuscotopia. And Cleo is like, well, I guess we could put this llama with the other llamas. And they kick Cusco into this pen with the other llamas. And that's the end.
Okay.
To me, it was like, I just don't see how Cusco...
He's still like a villain.
I don't see how Cusco could have a turn like that based on the position that he's in. It doesn't make sense to me. Also, maybe I'm a bit more cynical. But I also felt like we needed like another female in there. So I was like, what if we like played with the trope of like how the female is seen as an object and then actually isn't an object, but then actually is still seen as an object.
Yeah.
But Cleo's not an object.
Yeah.
So there's my story. It's kind of not great, but
both of us, I think, struggled a little with this one.
Because I don't know what really is there other than Cusco's turn. There's not really much of a story in this movie.
Kronk's turn.
I guess you could do Kronk's turn. To me, Kronk makes the most sense. He's clearly the best actual like leader.
He's also like almost like your classical hero, like mythology hero.
Oh, like dim-witted, but pure of heart.
Yeah, pure of heart, brawny, like you know,
like ancient Greek myth.
Yeah.
I was like, I wanted to do something different, and I just don't see how Cusco is actually a good person after 4 days of seeing things from the other side. Like certainly it was hard. Don't get me wrong, but why would that make him change? And Pacha's like, well, there's the theme is like there's good in everyone. Everyone has the capability of being selfless. And it's like certainly, but. With great power or absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if you can have anything you want, why would you not just have it?
Yeah.
Right? And we've seen that happen with like actual rich people in real life. Jeff Bezos. If you can have something,
if I want to go to space, why am I not going to go to space?
Exactly. Like, I'm surprised I'm not in space right now. I have the money to do it. So, and you stop thinking about how your actions affect other people because you can just buy them out. Yeah. We see this time and time again. Yeah. So, any last minute thoughts about The Emperor's New Groove? No. Where can people find you?
You can find me at twitch.tv/AlyssaLou with 3 O's.
You can find our band Robot Philosopher anywhere you listen to awesome music. You can also find our other channel, the CineMasters, for more scripted content. And thanks so much for hanging out with us here, listening to us talk about The Emperor's New Groove. Hit us up if you got thoughts about The Emperor's New Groove or any other movies you think we should do or that you have thoughts on. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye.
Peace.